So I'm Laura Manier. I'm the manager of social services for the town of Scituate. I work with all the folks here in all the different departments, and basically you're going to be hearing from lots of different folks who cover different areas of emergency preparedness. I just wanted to talk just for a minute about what we do here at the Senior Center. We have always maintained a storm call list for anyone who is concerned about getting information. I know a lot of information is now disseminated online. What we try to do, either a robocall or we will call folks personally who feel like they might not be able to get the information. So that's a program that you have to sign up for. So basically you would either let Jenny or somebody at the Senior Center know that you're interested in being registered for the storm call list. What we do is we take your name and your contact information. We try to get some general information about where you live, any disabilities that you might need assistance with. We will also talk through any plans that you might have. So we ask that folks try to come up with plans ahead of time before a storm. As you know, we have the shelter available, but more ideally you would either, if you were living on the coast or living somewhere where you would be worried about losing power, ideally you would have a plan to stay with a family member or a friend. If you didn't have that as an option, we could certainly talk through other possibilities. The idea for this call list, though, is that if you need some additional information, you want to talk through that plan ahead of time, we could do that with you. We also use that call list to reach out to folks during a storm only if we need to, and then after a storm as well if there's some follow-up that needs to happen. So if you have concerns for yourself or a loved one, or you're living with somebody who may have some additional needs, and you feel like it would be helpful to have some personal communication with the Senior Center prior to a storm, please let one of us know and we can sign you up for the call list.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elena Chevry from the fire department. And just like Laura mentioned, about this whole meeting is about emergency preparedness. The fire department has been working with our emergency preparedness link on the town website. So if you go to situatema.gov and go to our emergency preparedness link, you can sign up for the Code Red, which is through Plymouth County, which will notify you of what's going on. Not all the time in Scituate, it could be around us, what's happening, if there's a gas leak in Kingston, or if there's a storm, or if there's going to be a flood coming in, water coming in, they'll give you notification. We also have another link on that site, and it's called I Have Evacuated. We used this during the March storms, and it was fantastic. We knew like sections of town that were completely evacuated, so we didn't have to go to that area where there was water and flooding. We could notify if someone called in, we could say, no, they've evacuated. We can't give out any information where you went. We can just tell if someone calls that, yes, you're not in that house, you've left. So that's where it comes on you to notify your family members outside of Scituate that, yes, I'm leaving, I'm going to a hotel, I'm going to a friend's house. But we knew that Surfside Road, Oceanside, and Lighthouse Point was all completely evacuated, so we didn't need to go in any of those areas, which was fantastic. And we also have these lovely cards here that are, this is a part of your plan, my emergency plan. You can carry it in your wallet, but you share it with your family members as well. And I really recommend, if you haven't already, using this, your file of life, but you also fill one out if you're going to evacuate, to put it in your bags in case you're going somewhere, or even if you go to the shelter. That way, if by chance you can't communicate with us, we do know of what kind of medications you're on or what kind of disabilities you have. So I have a couple of them with me today. I'm sure to get some more, and I'll make sure I bring them down here and give them to the Senior Center for you guys to fill out. And we always, encourage everyone to update as well, because some people get better and they don't need this anymore. So, and the last I have is prepare for emergencies now for people with disabilities, especially like Laura mentioned, if you have, if you're not mobile, if someone's in a wheelchair, she can notify the fire department to help evacuate you, to get you to the shelter, or to the shelter where you can meet family members to pick you up. So that's my part of this presentation. I'll hand you over to Kim.
Thank you, Elena. Thanks for having us here today. This is a really important topic, obviously, for those of us who live in Scituate. It's the most wonderful place on earth, isn't it? In the summer. Elena and I have been through a lot together with storms in Scituate, so we come to you with a lot of experience. I'm not being conceited, but we do. We've worked very hard together with the police chief and the fire chief on keeping you all safe during storms. My portion of it is varied, but I'll talk to you briefly about pets because that's obviously very important to many of us in this room and beyond. I think we learned in Katrina that a lot of people would not leave their properties because of their animals, and there was no plan for that. So Scituate is very proud to let you know that we do have a plan. Sometimes it goes flawlessly, other times it's a little full of errors, but we will accommodate your pets. What we're asking for you to do today is to prepare yourself for an emergency, an evacuation, and also your pets. It's really, really, really important that you have a kit set up. I have some brochures up here at the front of the room if you need one to list out some of the things that you will need, but also a contact person that can help you, which sort of goes along with what Elena was saying. You need somebody that you can talk to about taking care of your pet if you need to evacuate. Yes, the Scituate High School emergency shelter will take you and your pet, but it is not the most comfortable place in the world for either you or your pet. So we do our very best to make it a comfortable situation for people, but really the best option is to try to reach out to family, friends. Laura Minier is a wonderful resource here, as well as the senior center folks to help you develop a plan. So important. I'll speak briefly about SANS. We are a nonprofit organization here in Scituate. SANS stands for Scituate Alliance of Natural Disaster Services. There's also a brochure for them in your, I think you're getting a bag, yes. And in that brochure, it gives you some information about our nonprofit. The best way for me to describe it is it's a mini Red Cross for just Scituate. So we would help you out if you had some kind of a disaster in your home and you needed our assistance. It also goes for a single family house fire or something like that. So read over that information. There's a phone number, there's an email there. We're happy to talk to anyone if they have any questions about it. SANS also plays a very big role in the emergency sheltering operation with our volunteers to try to make it a more comfortable space. So again, being prepared is just the most important thing. I hope that's the theme of today. I know Jeff from the State Commission on Disabilities has a lot of information for you as well. I think all of us just want you to be prepared, and we're all here to help you do that. So don't ever feel like you have to, try to figure this out on your own. Any one of us can talk to you. The fire department's easily reached, same with the police department, and also the Council on Aging, which you already know. So with that, I'm going to give you Officer Taylor Billings from the Scituate Police Department.
Good morning, everybody. I'm gonna stand here because I got all this stuff on. I was here a couple weeks ago doing a traffic presentation, so thank you very much for welcoming me back. I think the overall point of this presentation is to utilize common sense. For your properties around town, nobody knows the property better than you. So it's so important to be able to have a plan and to be able to get out of there if need be. We have 6 surplus military vehicles now that if you're unable to leave your house and it's too late and the water's too high, things like that, any low-lying areas, we're able to take those vehicles that are typically staffed with police and fire and also somebody in dive gear. And we will come and, to the best of our ability, come and get you out of your house. We like to use that as a last resort, not as a, we don't want to make it the primary thing for us to go out there and have to swim through the water to come get you out of your house. Again, what Helena said and what Kim said, I think overall here, you want to have a plan, you want to have utilize common sense, and just be prepared.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm glad you guys are here for my 3-hour presentation. I really appreciate it. What I want to make sure is that everybody, and if you don't have one, we can bring one to you towards the end. But does everyone have the packet of information that I was passing out? There's 3 pieces there. I'm not going to go as in detail as I typically would for my normal presentation, but what I want to share with you is, number 1, really listen to what some of the local resources that are being offered. I mean, every emergency really starts local, right? So it starts local with you interacting with your local first responders, or even before that, with your family and friends. So there's a lot of resources that Scituate has here that's very local. The materials I'm sharing with you are primarily what some of the state resources are. And there's some great state resources. The greatest thing that Scituate ever did was implementing Code Red. Code Red is it's Plymouth County, right, if I remember correctly, that you need a phone line, really, to get some sort of message. But I know that when Scituate sends out an alert, I not only get a text on my phone, I get an email on my phone, and I get a phone call on my phone. So I'm getting it 3 different ways. You don't need to necessarily do all 3 options, but there are ways that Scituate is going to send messages to you. And Code Red is one of the greatest programs that are out there because it's alerting you of not just the hurricane, but the water main break, or roads shut down, or other emergencies that are happening, or other situations that are happening. So it's a great resource. And while we have something in Massachusetts called Massachusetts Alerts, which is in this book, and you can look at it, it's an app for a smartphone, so not everybody has a smartphone, but if you do, there's an app there that would kind of follow you throughout Massachusetts and alert you to emergencies that are happening throughout the Commonwealth. And you can set the level, you can set different things, but I'll be honest with you, it's not as focused as what Code Red would be that you're going to get for Scituate specific. But it's a great resource to do. The other thing is really, sorry, I'm talking a little quickly, so I'll slow down a little bit, but there are about 12 or so resources in this booklet that you can look at from the state perspective that will help you or get you planning for an emergency. It's, in Scituate, we never really know what's coming our way, right? It could be a hurricane, could be a blizzard, could be, now we're seeing more tornadoes happening throughout the Commonwealth, or at least being reported more frequently throughout the Commonwealth. And we've got other types of disasters and emergencies, not only natural, but also man-made that we have to consider. So the materials I'm sharing with you are going to help you think about those different types of emergencies. There are 3 workbooks that you're ultimately going to be leaving here with today that are going to help you in the planning process. One is this new quick guide that we put together that if you fold it up correctly, and I only folded it once for you for the materials, but if you fold it up correctly, it's no bigger than the File of Life container. But it has a lot of information in here, very similar to what the File of Life would ask for. It's just a nice quick resource to have that you could then put this in the Go Kit that we're going to give you today. And I'll go over what's in the Go Kit in just a minute. We've also given you about an 18 or 19-page workbook that has a lot of space for writing down stuff like your medications, your important contacts. And if I can share with you that, for me, if you were to offer me $1 million to call my mom right now down in Florida, but not look up the phone number, do I know it? No, I don't know it. My phone knows it, but I don't. So in an emergency, and in Scituate, at least especially where I live, my phone's only going to last so long, right? Without power and without cell reception, so it's good while we have power, but not so great when we don't. I need to have those numbers written down in a good old-fashioned phone book, or at least in my emergency plan, my emergency contacts. And again, that is, I think, something on the File of Life as well. So what I'm really asking you to do is, from the 3 choices I'm giving you, this workbook, that quick guide, or the File of Life, make a copy of one of them and put them in your bag. If you choose to use the File of Life, make sure you photocopy it, put the photocopy in your bag, and put the File of Life back up on your fridge. Because your first responders are going to be looking for that if they're responding to a call that you've called in. So we could have given you, and there are a lot of workbooks out there that are about 200 pages long. And we know in reality people aren't going to fill those out. So we tried to condense it. So at least read over the book that we gave you, the workbook we gave you, and maybe you could even make some extra notes in the workbook and put this along with your File of Life copy in your bag. So when you're thinking about emergencies, you need to have certain supplies on hand, depending on what type of emergency. If you're evacuating to a shelter, or are they telling you to shelter in place, stay at home, and what does that mean? The quick guide is going to kind of talk about some of that. The shelter in place and what that means, if that's an order that Scituate's kind of giving their residents. If they're asking for evacuation, there's going to be more details on that. from the town telling you what's opening up as a shelter and where the shelter is, and because it may not be, you know, as much as we'd like to hope the high school is the place it's going to be. If that's where the emergency is happening, or that becomes a space they can't use, guess where they're not going to send you? To the high school. They're going to have, you know, they have plans, but and I'm sure they're working with other communities as well in case there's a larger event. But you need to really listen to where they are sending you. That's where Code Red comes into play. That's where listening to, is it WATD?
Yeah.
Perfect. I heard that out there in the audience, so thank you. WATD will be the local radio station that will be kind of broadcasting during the emergency as well. I think that's in Marshfield, if I remember correctly. So getting that information is pretty critical. The one other resource on the state level that I would like to tell you about is something called 211. We all know 911, right? We need our first responders immediately. That's in your life's in imminent danger. That's who you're going to call, and that's what you're going to call. But if you're looking for a shelter and you know that Scituate, or at least you're aware that Scituate would open a shelter, once that happens, there's a process in which it's reported to the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, and it gets reported to the people who manage the 211 system. If you dial 211 during an emergency scenario, there are people that are answering the phone to give you just basic information about that emergency. So if you call up and say, you know, I just don't remember what shelter is open in Scituate, they're going to tell you, okay, they've opened up the high school, or they've opened up a different spot depending on what type of emergency is happening. So it's a good number to have, and that is also one of the documents in your work, not in the workbook, but in the resource guide that we have, that we gave you. So what I want to share with you next is a lot of these guides and a lot of these workbooks and a lot of these materials will talk about getting a go kit ready or an emergency backpack full of supplies. And this is what I want to just spend a couple minutes going through what we're giving you, because everyone who's attending this today, well, I hope, depending, I have 42, so I just didn't do a quick count. What was that?
Pre-registered.
Okay, pre-registered. Okay, good. So the people who pre-registered will get one of these backpacks today, and it's full of emergency supplies. And I will be honest, because our program rotates, we've received grants from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, which comes from the state level, but they get their funding from the federal level, so it splits down to us. We're able to give these bags out to you, and because of that, we've changed the bags over some time. So this particular bag is the last revision. They're still fresh and still new, but this is going to have something that maybe a couple other bags won't. Like, for example, there is, in this bag, which I was surprised to find this morning when I was going through it, we're actually giving you K rations, food. We took this out because we know people aren't going to eat this. And why would we spend money on this, and would rather put something else in here that would make sense. So this, you know, while this bag, and maybe the bag you get, might have K rations, my suggestion is think about some long-term food that you could put in here, like a can of tuna fish, a can of Spam, you know, peanut butter, things that you're able to eat, or nutrition bars, or things like that will have long shelf lives. And every 6 months when you're changing out your your smoke alarms, go in and look at the expiration dates on any of these things and make sure you update them. So we do give you, well, for some of you, it'll be food. But have food around. You know, if you need to shelter in place, you may be sheltering there for 3 days. You know, or depending on the scenario. So you need to plan for about a 3-day worth of supplies. We also give you some ponchos. They are high contrast. Some are yellow, some are going to be vibrant orange. This is a one-time use poncho. It's light plastic, so use it when you truly need it to keep yourself dry, or there's 2 of them in here. This will also help you be seen if you're evacuating as well, so you'll be able to be seen a little bit, at least during the daytime. And I think someone had mentioned a personal care kit. We actually give you a personal care kit. One of the things we found during emergencies, people just want to have that sense of normalcy, back to normal, getting things back to normal, and that's you know, if you're affected directly by an emergency, that's the longest part, is getting things back to normal. So if you're in a shelter, or if you're in a friend's house or whatnot, we've decided to give you just a couple of personal care type of things, like a razor, shaving cream, toothbrush, toothpaste, comb. The little round thing in here that I originally thought was something for dentures, it isn't. or a mint. You can either go that. It isn't. It is an actual washcloth. And when you put it in water, it actually expands and it makes a single-use washcloth. And there's some other things in here as well that you probably want to take a look at every so often to make sure they're still good, because these will have an expiration date on them. We do have a can opener in here. Depending on which bag you get, you'll get a different looking one, but there are some can openers in here. Trying to see here. We do give you emergency blankets. They are highly reflective as well, so you can see. People can see you in it, but if you watch the marathon, you can see people in those tinfoily looking, it's like space blankets. That's what these are. They're all in Ziploc bags, and I guarantee you that if you take it out of your Ziploc bag, you're never going to get them back in. So, with that said, emergencies only, all right? We've also given the other item that makes the bag a little heavy, and the bags are around 10 pounds, is the fact that we're actually giving you some water. Water is the resource we all need, right? We can only go so long without water. We are giving you water that will actually last for 5 years before you need to replace it. So it's purified, stabilized drinking water. And there's about 12 of these little containers in here that should, for the general population, last one person for 4 days or 2 people for 2 days. Now, depending on your needs, right? On your needs, I know for me, if I don't have much water or if I don't have enough water, I start to get some headaches or migraines. So this water, while it, for the general population, might last somebody 4 days, for me, it's probably not going to be that as much as 4 days. But you have something, and you have something to start you off. So maybe I have bottled water or I have packaged water around the house as well in case I need it. So the biggest thing is putting together a kit. And there's more items in here, and I'm not going to take up the full time of the presentation to go over everything in the bag, but there's additional items here like a whistle. There's a glow stick to help you be seen if you're evacuating by foot or by walking. We've got a 12-in-1 pocket tool here. You might not be able to get in the shelter with it, I'm not sure, but it's good if you're sheltering in place and need a quick screwdriver or something. This could help. And the other item I want to share is that everyone I know, and we're giving you a 4-in-1 flashlight. And every bag will have this. Some will also have a little mini radio. But when we were consolidating our bags, this radio here requires batteries. This radio here doesn't require batteries. What this requires is a little bit of winding by somebody to wind it up. Now, the reason this ended up in the bag was because when I was after 2007, but before 2010, there was a big storm where we lost, I think, power for about 4 days. And it was during the winter time, and it was cold. I think this was pre-pet stuff, so the law that in Massachusetts hadn't been passed yet to require that pets accompany people to a shelter or things like that. And Scituate's already implemented that plan. So, my wife and I were at home, we're without power. Within 12 hours, this became useless. Because I was poor at planning at that time, within about a day, this battery up, not this one, but one I had with batteries, stopped working. Luckily, a couple days prior, at the hardware store, I saw a cool looking item on the shelf that for about 20 bucks, I bought one of these wind-up flashlights. Not really thinking I'd need it for a storm or anything like that. So for the first day, you can kind of suffer through the cold a little bit. Enough blankets, you snuggle the dogs or whatever, and you warm up a little bit. Second day, starts to get into your bones. But by that point, I was really having difficulty getting any reception on my phone or reception on the radio because the batteries were dying. By the third day, we were really making a decision. Do we leave and go to the shelter that we know was open and leave our pets behind, which we don't have to do that anymore, we don't have to think about that. But do we? Or do we just stay home and suffer through it a little bit? But it's really cold by that third day. It's made it everywhere into the house. The good thing was WBZ, and I didn't know about WATD, but WBZ at that time was starting to give hourly updates on the power restoration efforts. And they were pretty specific on their updates. And I knew that a minute of winding of this would give me about 10 minutes of radio. So, and it's a little work, so it might take somebody 2 minutes to wind it up to get the 10 minutes of radio. But I knew, and our decision or our contemplation was, if the power restoration efforts are coming down, as in it's going to be quicker to restore, we'll stay put. If for some reason there's a delay and that time frame starts to go up and expand out, we were gonna have to leave and go to the shelter. Luckily, with this, I was able to get the updates and realize that time frames were coming down, and within that, I think that night, we ended up getting power restored, and we were able to stay in the house. But this was really the only way I was getting my info about the storm and the after effects of it. We've included one in your backpack. And again, it doesn't require batteries. It is also a flashlight, so it can help you see. It is also a noisemaker to get attention if you need to of somebody. And it's also if you have an old-fashioned cell phone, it's also a charger that you could wind up and try to charge your phone. I'm gonna wish you the best of luck on that one. I didn't have any luck charging my phone with that, but, so it's really, for me, it's a 3-in-1 for you. A flashlight, a radio, and a little bit of a noisemaker.
Hi, my name is Kathy Dimash. I'm from the Scituate Housing Authority, and looking out over everybody, I don't see any of my residents, but if they were here, I would repeat what everyone before me has said, and the best plan you can have is be prepared, join the call list through the Council on Aging, and also make plans ahead of time with family or friends so that you don't have to be alone in your home, and they may not be experiencing the storm in the same way that Scituate will be. So it might be good to leave and go to family members. Within Scituate Housing, we do have emergency generators in our community rooms for each of our parks, so that if we do lose power, the residents are able to go to the community room to get warm and recharge cell phones, and we have refrigerators and cooking facilities. The only other thing that I can think of is plan ahead. Plan ahead.
Good morning, I'm Laurel Sheehy with the Scituate Food Pantry. Although we can't offer much during a storm, because if the roads are closed, we can't have our volunteers out, risking injury or whatnot, we can supply food items to the shelter. If the shelter needs food items to cook, we can provide them to those items. I would suggest if you have one of these bags and you pack it with food, we at the food pantry know that we can date our food out 1 year beyond the best by date or best used by date. You might want to mark it on your bags, on your items, so you don't have to keep looking for that date. They're not easy to find. Beyond that, the only other thing we can do is ask that, again, be prepared in advance. If any of you belong to the food pantry as members, stop by in the winter. Make sure you stock up on items that you can use or take with you if you have to leave and go someplace else. The other thing is donate. Donate to the food pantry so that those who come back and have lost their food through loss of power can come down and replenish. I mean, a lot of us are fortunate enough we can go do that, others aren't.